Hello, Professor Didi here today, talking to you more about international relations related to human issues, thinking about demographic trends. Demographics is a fascinating thing to look at when studying political science, whether it's American government or international relations. The growth of the world's population will have an enormous impact on the planet's ability to carry the people we have on it, the maximum mass that can support any given territory. Our planet's only so big, so much covered by water. Where do the people go as the population increases? What is the potential impact of human behavior on the planet's resources and its delicate balance of the ecosystems? Population growth, refugees, and migration are all issues facing the planet Earth. One area to look at is population growth and decline in the global north and global south. Populations increase faster in the developed south than in the developed north. The population in the developed global north has leveled off, and this lower fertility rate has created an aging population. In developed countries, high birth rates have continued in spite of reduced death rates due to the increase in vaccines and modern drugs. In other words, in the more well-to-do societies, people are living longer because they're able to live in more of a healthy environment and be able to do better there. There's more medicine, more things to keep you living longer. When it comes to other parts of the world, things are a little different. Families need additional family labor and income, creating population surges. The demographic trend is that these states remain younger and faster growing. High fertility rates have major economic consequences. The population of the developed global south is younger than the global north. China and India are experiencing huge population growths. And this can be a problem for both of those countries when it comes to development. In the global south, a high population growth rate leads to low economic growth. The world's population is growing at an alarming rate. It's only getting bigger and faster. And what do you deal with all the people and all the problems? This could be something that a lot of people don't think about till it's too late. Population density represents a kind of demographic divide. In other words, when you think about population density, a lot of people living in a small compacted area. Where do they go? Where do they live? This surge in urbanization is likely to aggravate the existing environmental problems. Too many people in one confined space. How do you get resources in? Modern American cities can do fine, but poorer places like Lagos in Nigeria have more of a problem. Urbanization also provides challenges because much of the current urbanization is occurring in some of the poorest regions of the world, places like Mexico, places like Nigeria, and this can be a great problem for these countries to get by. It's projected that future urbanization will actually occur more in smaller cities and towns. However, they face their own problem of crime and housing and infrastructure. You have a big city, but infrastructure is critical. Infrastructure isn't just roads and bridges. It's water systems, it's electricity, etc. In 1974, the first World Population Conference started. And the idea was development was the best contraceptive. In other words, the more a country economically develops, fewer children will be born. Good health care causes longer life expectancy, and the lack of family planning creates more people and more problems. The goal in reducing population growth is to achieve replacement level fertility when two parents are replaced by two children. This gets into a debate, especially on the issue of abortion. About 42 million abortions are performed each year. 20 million conducted in unsafe practices in poorer parts of the world. Family planning is viewed as vital to women's health. Most controversial element of family planning is abortion, in part due to religious leaders not wanting that as an option to be discussed, especially in the Catholic Church. Family planning success has been slow. While projections assume the population will grow, something catastrophic such as a nuclear war, a pandemic, which we know well about, can cause all this to change. More educated people have fewer children. Think about why that's so. Another issue in demographics is economic migration. In other words, people moving from point A to point B because the jobs are there. This happened in the United States before and after World War II when people from poor regions of the South moved north for the jobs and economic opportunity. Migrants move in search of higher standards of living. It is all about jobs. This will continue as developed states need migrants to do many of the low-paying jobs that natives won't do. Now, think about this. People are unemployed. If you tell them, hey, I know a job you can start at tomorrow making $15 an hour, they'll say, where? If you say, well, it's picking up trash, they'll say, I don't want to do that. But there are people willing to do that. Refugees are people whose religion, ethnic background, political opinions, or membership in a group make them targets for persecution or repression in their homelands, and they migrate from their country to seek asylum or some sort of sanctuary in a host country. Wars create refugees. Refugees are likely to leave a country that cannot maintain law and order. Displaced people live in similar conditions to refugees, but they remain in their home country. Often they are victims of war and internal violence. Most want to come to the United States because of the economic opportunities we have here. Refugees flee to another country. Displaced persons, they stay. There are many consequences to migration. Migrants often provoke a negative reaction in host countries. In other words, why are these foreigners here? Nativism or discrimination against immigrants is likely when the host country experiences economic recessions and high unemployment. In other words, they're taking jobs from us. This has happened in America throughout its history. Xenophobia, a fear of foreigners, and extreme nationalism can also exacerbate the problem. In the United States, political pressure to restrict immigration is very cyclical at times. As I said, the attitude is they're taking jobs. A growing number of people are moving from their home country to another country, creating a brain drain. In other words, smart, educated people leaving third world countries for a better way of life. Well, that may be good for the United States to have more people come to this country who are smart, but what does it do to the country they've left behind? This happened during the Cold War a lot and is still happening today. Indigenous peoples are ethnic and cultural groups that were native to geographic locations, now controlled by another state or political group. When you think about this, Native Americans. Genocide describes a deliberate extermination of such ethnic people, such as what Hitler did. While some native peoples have turned to violence to fight injustice, most have turned to peaceful means to try to gain a voice in their communities. There have been many considered international solutions to deal with this problem. The United Nations and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have attempted to address the problem associated with economic migration. But this can be a very difficult thing to do because it's hard to get rid of some native prejudices when people come in. Long-term migrants, both political and economic, continue to pose problems for host countries and the international community. Millions of refugees still have no place to go, and thousands of economic migrants face discrimination and anti-immigration violence. Individual states are left to deal with the problem. This also relates to the next issue of the global health picture. Globalization, something we've talked about from day one of this class, has made their spread more likely with improved transportation. 100 years ago, going from Dundalk to Catonsville would be a long journey. Today, it's a half-hour drive. For migrants today, it's easier to get from point A to point B. The Earth's resources are not enough to deal with population growth. The unused antibiotics in the developing world and overuse in the developed world has caused a rise in restraints of resistance to infections. Clean water is a problem. The danger that globalization will cause diseases to spread far and wide is a fear of the situation of pandemics. Poverty, malnutrition, and poor sanitary conditions make populations in developed countries more susceptible to health problems. Developing countries bear the greatest brunt when it comes to infectious diseases, deaths related to malnutrition, and deaths due to disabilities. In part of the problem, not available vaccines to deal with some of the simple problems we can get vaccinated here today. The international community has attempted to deal with a host of global health concerns through immunization and programs aimed at eradication. But Securing international cooperation is difficult because some people think about COVID. I don't want to get that vaccine. I believe that vaccine will do bad things to me. There's that negative connotation. The WHO, the World Health Organization, which includes immunization programs, has announced it's reached a goal recently of eradicating smallpox. Today, the WHO focuses on eradicating things like polio and leprosy and other tropical maladies, things in America we don't even think about anymore. Immunization programs are critical for keeping people alive. And the better the immunization efforts, the better it is for the poor third world countries. Population issues, migration, health, and disease affect all states in the international community as the world becomes more globalized and in many ways becomes smaller, are related to fragmentation and conflict as refugees flee civil wars, creating tensions in a host country when they arrive. Last thing I want to add behind a lot of this stuff is people is what makes the world go round. Any society needs a healthy population that is working and producing goods and services. But when you have healthcare problems and healthcare crises and illnesses, it alters the dynamic of that country. And when you think about the situation of illnesses in third world countries, where there are major catastrophes, where in the United States it's like, well, I was vaccinated against that years ago. Health problems will continue to arise throughout the globe. The key is preventing these things from happening.